Hello everybody and welcome back to Victoria, where we've been working on building ourselves a stable domestic economy here, and it's going okay. We've made some changes to our imports and exports, and the question is, how is this going to shake out? Because we have an engine shortage and a meat shortage, but we do produce those domestically. The question is, do we have enough workers to produce them domestically? We'll find out here in a moment. Let's tick forward for just a little bit here. And yes, we are running a deficit at this time. That's a good substitution tick. 633k. I like it. So we have an explosives shortage at this point. That's understood. We do produce explosives. So I want to be very clear about that. We have an explosives factory right here. I think we have a distinct lack of workforce, for sure. I mean, if we look at what we've got here, we do have 16.4k peasants. If we look at the explosives factory here, we failed to hire due to qualifying laborers. Yeah, so qualifications are a pretty major issue for us. We are rocking a 61.3% literacy rate, but we do need to increase qualifications across the board. So if we check in here, we can see we're down to about 20k peasants. That number has been cut roughly in half. So that's good. And we want these people to get put to proper work. That would be ideal. So for the time being, things are going okay. We have nothing under construction right now. We are waiting for the investment pool to expand. Yeah, that's quite slow. So that is definitely going to take some time. So we've got this revolution here, and we need to let these guys just get used to cultural exclusion. And actually, this is down to 30%, but they're still at 86% activism. Their activism hasn't been significant. That's interesting. It's because of the radicalism. Okay, so these trade routes to the Confederate market are currently inactive, and let's get rid of them and see what that does to the price of clothing. That will be absolutely noted. We can see that we have some of these that are still technically negative at this point. This is an export route of explosives, and we're running a shortage of that, so we should probably ditch that export route for the time being. Okay, so we no longer have a shortage of explosives. Looks good. Otherwise, I think all of this is relatively fine. That said, yeah, this is an export trade route of glass. I think that's okay for the moment. So, goods with considerable demand for export. This could mean wine. This could mean iron. What else do we have here? Yeah, a lot of these are just negative right now. So that's understood. Are there any of these that are positive? Actually, a little bit of fertilizer would be positive in productivity. So that looks good. Anything else in here that would be positive in productivity? No. So for now, that's what we're going to do. And we, of course, need to have our GDP become a little bit more stable. No doubt about that. Our standard of living is all over the place. This is heavily related to our GDP, so that is absolutely understood. For the moment, we can't do any real law changes, and we went down to a contested government 74. We should probably kick the industrialists out of government then, and go up to a righteous government. This will mean that we will passively lose some radicals, which would be... So the industrialists have been removed from government. All of our interest groups are angry right now, and this is not surprising. This paper trade route is currently inactive, and I would like to wean ourselves off of these imports. So we are definitely interested in doing that for the time being. And we'll see what that does to the price of paper. Yeah, paper is currently expensive. Can we import it at all? The answer is no, so we're going to have to expand our domestic production. And that means people. We're going to need people working here. As we can see, we're lacking some qualifications here for these vacancies. But, I mean, eventually, we'll get there. Eventually. We have gold reserves at this point. Okay, there must have been a privatization. I like it. So for now, this revolution is just kind of chilling here, right? They're up to 89% at this point. Radicalism is definitely way up, and this is because our standard of living is down. Our standard of living is down because our GDP is down right now. Our GDP is kind of cyclical. It goes up and down, but we want it to go a lot more up than this. That's for sure. We actually have a pretty desperate need of it going quite up at this point. So we'd like to have more people coming in here. 15K is good. I'd love to see another mass migration like this one, but we'll see if that ends up happening. The Great Train Smash, huh? Honestly, yeah, enjoy the spectacle. That'll be fine. We could definitely use getting more loyalists, but the standard of living issue is rough at this moment. So my question is, what is driving down our standard of living? Looks like it's primarily Indiana and Minnesota. So if we check in on Minnesota here, what do we have going on for this? Well, the poor strata is very, very bad in Minnesota. What do they got going on? Taxes. We can't really afford to cut taxes at this time. We just can't. So that's not going to be a thing. And then here in Indiana, what do we got going on here? Taxes. And the price of grain, actually. Grain is quite expensive right now, and we do have grain production, but we are actually maxing out our maize farm in Wisconsin. Where else do we have grain production? Here in Illinois. We're not So we have a lot of grain production potential there. We could import grain. But we have a lot of domestic production potential. We're just not hiring into these right now. So we could subsidize these. That's an option. I don't know that it's a great option, though. So there is that. That said, we know that the price of grain is a significant issue. So up here in Minnesota, that's maxed out. Our maize farm in Wisconsin is maxed for the moment. Our maize farms in Michigan are maxed. So it is this maize farm in Ohio, this one in Indiana, and this one in Illinois. So let's take a look at our unemployment counts. Okay, I think Ohio is the place to subsidize, if we're going to subsidize. So we can do that. That'll cost us a little bit of money, and we can, at the very least, drive down the price of grain for at least a little bit. So that'll be fine for now. And in fact, we may even be able to export some grain, but we can see standard of living here, 7.8. Yeah, that's definitely problematic. Our taxes are crushing everyone right now. That's a big part of the problem. And I think we're going to have to cut taxes, but it's bad for us financially. We were running a deficit on maximum taxes, right? So that's absolutely an issue. Overly enthusiastic partisans, huh? Well, we're not surprised that the Liberal Party is bleeding votes here in this situation. That is definitely not surprising in the slightest. Doesn't really matter to me what we end up with. I think we're in a pretty okay spot as far as our politics go. So that seems reasonably fine. But let's cut our taxes down. That should immediately cause some relief for our standard of living. But our GDP continues to slump at this point. And I'm wondering about, this might be due to general market conditions, but I'm wondering about potentially additional exports, because we could definitely use some cash inflows. No doubt about that. Yeah, no real exports there right now. Well, the industrialists are no longer trying to do tax avoidance. So that's good. In fact, did they just get marginalized? They did. I'm okay with this. So that's absolutely fine for now. I want to check in on these trade routes here, and let's see what we've got going on here. So we need to be importing this steel. Exporting this iron, sure. I feel like this kind of has to happen, but I think I'm going to get rid of this for now, and we'll see what that ends up feeling like. That was a pretty big revenue drop. The sulfur has to happen. I think we're over-importing coal at this moment. Actually, it's not that bad of a market balance. I think we'll keep that. So this wine export is negative. Let's get rid of that for now. This tobacco export is negative. Let's get rid of that for now. I think we do need to continue to import some paper, but maybe not both of these. Let's get rid of that one and bring the other paper positive. I want to wean ourselves off of the importation of paper, and I want to produce it domestically. So that'll be fine. We don't produce lead domestically for the moment, and I think we may still be a little bit over importing the coal here. So let's get rid of this one, and that'll boost up both of those coals to be positive. Looks good. So next up, we've got these tools. Our tool production is pretty okay, actually. So this would be a total of 7.5. Let's get rid of that. Do we have any furniture production? Hang on. I'm not actually sure that we do. Do we have domestic furniture production? No. Okay. So no domestic furniture production. That's understood. So at this point, I feel like the steel, the sulfur, and the lead are required imports. The furniture is also required imports because we don't have domestic production of any of this at this time. So that looks good. And then all of these are relatively positive. So let's let that go for the time being. What do we got going on here? Momentum to the Liberal Party? Sure. Oof. That good substitution. We'll get there. These changes are a bit painful at first. But eventually, we'll find a balance here. And that'll be very, very good. I would like to get some steel production going domestically. I think that would be a really good thing. But we have a distinct lack of workforce at this moment. So we have some peasants here in Michigan. They're not working in the livestock ranches. Understood. Or in this railway, exactly. But logging camps, paper mills, somewhat, glassworks, explosives factory, yeah. So I kind of want to put in a steel mill up here. We really can't afford to build it. But if we put a steel mill in, that would be good. Alternatively, we could do our own production of... Do we have any coal mines? No. We could do our own production of coal, of lead, of sulfur. These would not be a bad thing to do. But the earnings are not terribly great, right? So there's that. I would like to get a steel mill in. That would take 800 construction. That would be quite expensive. I'd put this in Michigan, like this. Now, we're currently paused on construction. We're gonna run bankrupt at this rate eventually anyway, I feel like. So maybe we should just do this. How expensive will that be? Let's run it for 1 week here and find out. That's pretty expensive. What kind of time do we have for this? So in order to get this done, we have 381K for our credit limit minus 5.19 divided by 8.81, assuming this number stays even, which it probably won't. So that would mean that we have 42.6 weeks. This is insufficient time to build this steel mill. Mostly that's due to construction efficiency. Okay, so we're going to have to pause on that. We have an iron shortage at this moment. We produce iron domestically, so as long as we hire into this iron mine, that should be fine. We need people more than anything. We need to work these jobs. We need people with qualifications. That's the big thing that we need. So to that end, we can increase qualifications with social mobility. We're doing this in Michigan already. If we drop one of these, we will not be able to put it back due to our current authority levels. So that's absolutely understood. Our GDP is wildly careening at this moment. We are dropping in our number of radicals, so that is good. And if we check in here, yeah, these guys are down to 82 on their militantism, 25% from cultural exclusion. Okay, so they're still primarily from radical supporters, but we should be working down that radicalism slowly. And these guys should be slowly improving their opinions, in theory, but a lot of this is just radicalism. And that's not surprising, considering what we've got going on. We're being blamed for Britain's actions here. This is not exactly our fault. and we've attempted to recover with partial success, but we're not exactly where we want to be yet. Our education investment did go up, and that's good. We're at a righteous government 100. Excellent. And we're slowly working on bringing this up. Now, we're probably going to have to declare bankruptcy again unless we get a privatization, which we may or may not have anything eligible to be privatized. I'm not entirely sure at this point, but we're continuing to fill out Minnesota over here. That'll be done soon, and once that's done, that will help matters as well. We'll get some population out of that, but the real important thing that we'll get out of that is no split state here, and the Liberal Party wins. Okay. 78 righteous government. It's down a little bit, but this is the best we're going to get, so that seems fine. We are at least going to have some amount of radical decrease, hopefully. What we really need to do that is to get our economy on track. Hang on, we just filled up our gold reserves. If we built this steel mill now, that construction efficiency is so rough. I'm just thinking here. This logging camp doesn't have a lot of production. If we drop this, and that's a big part of the reason why our GDP is so low, by the way. These logging camps are a huge part of our GDP. If we did this, we don't have enough to get another one going. So what I'd like to do is I'd also like to drop this. Then, we've got this guy here, but we could also do... Actually, we can't do crackdowns. Interesting. That is not a possibility at this time. We could run a greener grass campaign. I don't feel like that's all that useful, but maybe we'll get some migration if we did that. So with an extra 98.6k, I'm going to go ahead and start building this steel mill. Now, we're not going to finish this, but we can get that underway. We're running a shortage of iron again, and that's absolutely understood. We should hire in Minnesota. That should be fine. Yeah, there we go. So that looks good. Again, we need more people, is what we need more than anything. So that all seems relatively fine. We're going to be building here until at least we're out of gold reserves. I'm going to run a calculation on how long we can build after we spend down these gold reserves, which it's going to be significant for sure. 13.9k is a lot. An awful lot. Okay. Well, we'll spend down a bunch of this. Goods for government buildings, yeah, mostly paper, and government wages are a big part of our deficit at this moment. So at this point, we should probably be pausing our construction now. And we managed to get how much done there? Well, actually, I'm going to resume this construction for one more week. We're going to go into debt here. And the question is, how much time do we have? So, 498 minus 7.31 divided by 13.2. That's only 37 weeks. So we do not have enough time to build this, so we're going to have to pause at this moment. Okay. So a big part of that cost, I think, was the iron shortage. So the iron shortage only... We can't import any. Okay. The iron shortage only occurs while we're constructing. And now they're going to fire from the iron mine because the price of iron is going to tank. Our only real iron consumption at this moment is construction. Oh, this just restarted. Okay, I'll take it going down to 0. That seems fine. And now it's gone. That's very good. I'm very happy about that. And our GDP is gone too. Understood. So, our taxes are cut right now, and our standard of living is slowly coming up. Now, at this point, we are still running a deficit, and this is definitely not ideal. 1.8k in unrealized taxes is huge for us. This tax waste is just because of our turmoil. If the turmoil goes away, so does our deficit. But we have a long ways to go on that. We have a lot of radicalism right now. Most of the country is radicalized at this moment due to the economic woes that we've been suffering. But we have slowly been working our way through them. So, if we check in here, we can see this export of wine is negative. Let's get rid of it. This export of glass is negative. Let's get rid of it for now. The rest of this, I feel like we don't have domestic production of any of these. This paper is negative. Let's get rid of it. That will potentially harm our bottom line here for now. But we do produce it domestically. The rest of this, we do not produce domestically, and we do need to import. So that's understood for now. I don't suppose we can do good exports. Well, I'm going to export iron just to keep the price of iron a little bit better while we're not constructing. Any wine, porcelain, I mean, this glass is negative currently. Yeah, that's all negative. So that's understood. We're going to try to keep this iron having some level of demand to it. But we really do need to finish up this steel mill at some point. The question is, can we? I mean, we could, again, if we didn't have all of this radicalism. And the reason we have the radicalism is completely fair. We need to get that radicalism gone. But how can we do that at this time? That's an interesting question for sure. We kind of just need time for it to tick down. So there's improved fertilizer. That gives us potentially some new production methods. So we could think about bringing some of these production methods back up. Here in steel mills, of course, we can run Bessemer process and there we go, something like that. So fertilizers for the maize farms. That's going to cause problems. That's understood. So I'm just checking through the rest of these production methods. I think they're fine for now. Yeah, there's only so much that we can do here. Yeah, we want to be on mixed here. We definitely do want to be on mixed for that. So that sounds okay. We're going to run a fertilizer shortage. That's expected. And we have one right now. So we can import fertilizer from the American market, and that will help matters anyway. So that will improve our production from these maize. And we do produce some domestic fertilizer, I believe. So let's check our market price on fertilizer from livestock ranches. Yeah, it's kind of a byproduct. So in our livestock ranches that are, say, over here, you can see, yeah, things are a bit rough. No doubt about it. We're working on it. It's much easier when we can just export to the British market. But we don't really have an option to join their market here. So, there is that. Yeah, they would not accept a trade agreement even. So, yeah, that's not really anything that we can do at this moment. So, understood. The petite bourgeoisie are wanting to pass protectionism. No. We're not going to pass protectionism. That's just not going to be a thing. Free trade is about as good as we're going to get. I mean, we'd make 544 from tariffs, but that wouldn't really be enough to justify. And we're very reliant on particular imports, so I think those tariffs would be bad economically for us anyway. I don't think that's a good idea at this moment. So as of right now, we're running a bit of a meat shortage. We produce it domestically, so that should be reasonably fine. I want to check in here. 359 in interest. Okay. So our GDP sucks as of this moment. And this is because we don't have people working in our iron mines. I would love to export additional iron just to get people to work in the iron mines. We have no available option to export that, though. Or wood. Negative options for wine, negative options for tobacco. Like, our options here are very, very limited. We could import paper. To what end, though? We produce it domestically, so I think we're fine for the moment. Our GDP is low, but this is because we don't have people being put to work in particular locations, like this iron mine. Like this textile mill, right? We have a lot more GDP cap that we can go to. We just need to get demand up for these things. There's just not enough demand. That's the core issue. Okay. Hypothetically, 569? We might get there. We might get there. We're 575k right now, growing by 6.26k annually. I like it. If we check in on our health system, that is growing 74 weeks on that. Education is going to go up in 29 weeks. Okay. These are very slow, but that's absolutely understood. So our education institution is going up. Our literacy is slowly increasing, and that's absolutely fine for now. Our GDP is rough. But honestly, our income is getting a lot better. A lot better. We're paying 90.8 in interest right now. 990 is our balance. I'm just wondering if we can get this positive. So this would be wine, or we could just crank this up. That would be 559. I mean, this would be rough for us, no doubt about it. It'd be bad for our standard of living, but it would be good for being able to construct. I feel like we have to boost revenue. A consumption tax would not be particularly useful. This would be about 10% of what we would need to get positive. So in that case, we might be better off running a, well, encourage resource industry once again out over here. So something along the lines of that to boost our industry throughput out over here. This would be just this logging camp, which isn't maxed out at this moment. And we would very much like to export more wood, but getting more demand for wood would be good too. Yeah, we just don't need more wood in our market. That's a big part of our problem right now, is we don't have a demand for it. Now, our construction sector, when we get this going, this does utilize wood and iron, and that's why our GDP soars when we start constructing. But as of right now, we can't do it. We're just a little bit too low on our income. But we're really, really close here. There must be a way to get this flipped around. But it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to see getting maybe some of these unrealized taxes, but I'm 99.9% certain that that's literally just a problem with radicalism. So let's see here. Yeah, we've got plenty of taxation capacity. That's not the issue at all. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.